What's up, gamers? Dreamcastguy here, talking today about Cyberpunk 2077, because it sounds like, according to this new leak, they're still trying to fix the game, and maybe the game could be a lot better here in the next 100 days. But let's take a look at things. Real quick, before we take a look at this rather outlandish leak, I do want to just quickly say thank you to everybody who subscribed and liked videos and left cool comments last year. It was a complete whirlwind, and I still can't even believe that this is the first video of 2022. But now, let's get into it. First and foremost, I do want to just put a gigantic asterisk. This has been posted on Gaming Leaks and Rumors, and I think the information originally came from 4chan. Now, I know you're going to laugh because 4chan is a bit of a lolcow at times, but a lot of good information does go to 4chan. A lot of it does end up on there at some point. This is somebody who did a very clean repost of it, so we can actually look at the information. And I'm 50-50 with some of the details that have already been released directly from CD Projekt Red, the developers. It seems like this stuff is at least partially accurate or a very good guess. But I wanted to kind of look through this laundry list because it seems like stuff that could very much fix the game if it is correct. Now, let's begin with this. Cyberpunk 2077's next patch is called 1.5 and will be treated as a soft relaunch of the game. Game will be renamed Cyberpunk 2077 Samurai Edition. Now, of everything in this that we're going to go over, a lot of these features are tweaks and updates that definitely make the game itself better. This is the part I believe the most. Like, Cyberpunk 2077, even the name right now is kind of toxic. It does feel like sometimes that they're having to try and escape the mountain of marketing that they themselves have established over the course of the 5 years before the game came out. And additionally, let's face it, Cyberpunk is easily one of the most hated games of all time. Like, it's become such a meme in and of itself. The fact that it is just so synonymous with hard crashes, bad last-gen versions of the game, and overpriced DLC that's probably going to be released. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's go back to the DLC itself. Now, CD Projekt Red is planning to do a big live stream around February to reveal the patch, the Cyberpunk anime, which we do know is definitely in existence, and the first expansion. Now, the studio working on the Cyberpunk anime is very good. It's called Studio Trigger. Honestly, I think the anime is going to be great, even if you continue to hate the game. I do hope we all enjoy the anime. I'll probably do the review of the anime. We'll see. Now, here's where we start to get the first real new features, the things that do not exist in the game as it currently is, but are being added to it. The new patch features barbershops, a garage, improved AI, a transmog system, a complete rebalancing of the loot, and a new UI. Now, for those of you who don't play a lot of MMORPGs, games like World of Warcraft or something like Final Fantasy XIV, a transmog system is something that's very integral to those communities. It's essentially an ability to take one item and cast a magic spell on it to make it look like another item. So this is my Arnold Schwarzenegger bodybuilding shirt that I love a lot, but if for some reason I want to snap my fingers and make myself wearing something completely different, I can do that. All the features listed right here seem very plausible, like none of this seems too incredibly outlandish, except for the improved AI. Something about trying to fix a game that already has such a strange police system. A lot of the enemies are only able to tell that there's one target at a time. If you haven't played freaking Cyberpunk lately, there is a very strange problem that still exists, where if you're fighting somebody who's fighting somebody else, you're invisible. They can't see you because they're looking at somebody else, which is a very strange glitch. But let's continue down the list. The promised free DLC will be bundled and includes 4 new weapons, new game plus, apartment customization, and new gigs, which are essentially the side quests. Now, here's what's funny about that. We've already data mined some of this. People have managed to dig through the raw code of Cyberpunk and seen that there's supposed to be 4 weapon packs. Like, inside the code, it says that there is going to be these additional updates to the game that introduce completely new weapons, which is cool. But this leak makes it sound like it's not 4 sets of new guns. It's just going to be 4 new guns, which is a bit of a giant letdown. Now, New Game Plus, I can absolutely believe this. Apartment customization, alright, that seems pretty believable because let's face it, it's not that giant of a feature. And new gigs. Additional side quests seem great, but that's also the most work. Of everything we've talked about in here, new gigs is the thing that sounds the smallest, but is definitely the most gigantic. But going back to this, tons of small stuff like Judy and Panam sending you more text messages during the course of the game, which obviously they are the love interests, and honestly have become big fan favorites. I do feel like these are the two characters that have become almost the lightning focal point of the positivity around the game. It's the fact that the romance options are written in a way that feels realistic. People talk in a way that you would talk to your girlfriend. Now here we go. First expansion takes place in Pacifica, which is actually quite large. You walk around and do quests in what is called the Combat Zone. The Combat Zone is being fought over by two new gangs, the Bozos, violent clown psychopaths with a sick sense of humor, and a gang called the Slaughterhouse, violent psychopath fascists. Okay, so here is where I actually start to believe this a lot less. Here is where the fun car is starting to go off the rails. Mostly because the amount of work that it would take to go into a completely new territory is not only very, very enormous just from the scale and time it would take, but it's very expensive. Like actually creating an additional zone, which as they described is quite large, makes me think that this would cost additional millions and millions and millions of dollars. Now, the reason that this might exist, and I am hopeful that Pacifica does pop up, the reason it might exist is because they are still trying to win back fan love. Because there's been a series of lawsuits and stuff because people are so pissed towards this game. They've been suing for things like, false marketing, broken promises, and stuff like that permanently hurts the reputation of these developers. CD Projekt Red has to worry about basically how their future games are going to look and not just Cyberpunk. So this could be a good chance to basically give a peace offering to the community. Walking around the combat zone feels very inspired by the game Stalker. Cyberpunk will get its own Gwent-like minigame and involves going to cyberspace and controlling and collecting monsters, which you send to JRPG-like battles. Also has multiplayer. Okay. If this part is real, I will be the most shocked. Mostly because, multiplayer requires servers, it requires a lot more upkeep, it requires more balancing, whereas just integral stuff, you can print that on a disc. This is the part that sort of sounds the most fun, because I am a giant lover of JRPGs, but also the most ridiculous. Now let me finish it off here. One of the monsters looks like a Reaper, another one I saw looked like an Oni, which is like a Japanese demon. And here we go. The Cyberpunk anime is called Cyberpunk 2077 Edge Runners and is made by Studio Trigger with writing story made by CD Projekt Red themselves. It looks absolutely insane, beautiful 2D animation, and reminds me of Akira, which makes sense because Akira is one of the major inspirations for this game. So A to B, ipso facto, that totally makes sense. Another expansion is in the early stages of planning, but will only be released if the first expansion is a success. Okay, so this part, I do not believe in the slightest. Like, Cyberpunk has already promised a series of free DLC updates. They've already basically said, in order to try and placate people who have already bought this game, because let's keep in mind, Cyberpunk is still an incredibly popular purchase. People have bought this game by the tens of millions. A lot of people have also returned it, but Cyberpunk is a thing that has to be finished. Like, straight up, this is not an option. The developers have to finish the game. So I think it's pretty obvious that at some point we are going to get more DLC, more updates, more things that are going to finish it off. Now, the idea of this just being a singular big X-Pack, one big chunk of additional landmass, which admittedly does sound very good, Pacifica seems like a very fun time, it's difficult for me to believe that they would just do a one-and-done power-up. One giant update that introduces everything from multiplayer to minigames to new quests and more dialogue with the love interests. That sounds like definitely a relaunch, but to this degree, I am doubtful. Well, this has just been a For Funsies video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you had a very good New Year's. Mine was very crazy. I ended up waking up dressed as a pimp. That was fun. Love you guys very much. It's been a good time. Hope you have a very good holiday. And please, enjoy your new year. Make some good resolutions and play the very best in video games. Much love and keep dreaming. Also, like this video and subscribe. Bitch. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.